CAFOs. Attached to that is also the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health that will support our argument as far as health concerns, which you have already heard enough about this evening, as well as the moratorium proposal for Maryland Green Agriculture Coalition. I also want to stress to the gentleman in the back that we are not anti-chicken. We are for local farmers. We are against industrial-based factory farms. We live right by family-owned chicken houses. We are no means fighting that. This is an industrial-sized project, and that is what we are against. So, just to stress that. As a concerned citizen, I urge you to please put a moratorium on all upcoming and present permits. There is a large body of research, again, attached, that has been compiled by several different schools and research bodies that will support our arguments. And I would like to demand at this time that you give us an opportunity to meet with you in a work session in the very near future to present our concerns and to invite a public health expert to sit with you, to sit with all of us. We also want you to convene a Wacomico County Health Board and appoint a stakeholder group full of representatives from the council, concerned citizens, public health experts, and local health officials to plan a strategy for drafting a public health ordinance to be considered for adoption into the county zoning code. We have researched other states and counties' regulations for these factories and would be willing to share them with you at that time. So, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Well, my name is India Marshall. I live on 814 Hammond Street, right here in Salisbury, Maryland. My concern with the farms is just the fact that I work for 2 DD agencies, and dealing between babies, senior citizens, and people with mental and physical disabilities, they can't, I guess we don't have the same immune systems as them. And I've been in the homes, and there's multiple homes on that strip. No one really knows when there's a DD agency home because they're not always owned by the direct agency. So when those consumers go out to get fresh air, because we can't take them out into the community, they're going to be breathing in everything they're not supposed to. So the people that's had respiratory infections for the last 3 months and can't get rid of them, there's nothing the doctors really can do. They've already got their medication. There's no change. Basically, we just had a meeting. We're trying to find ways to make sure they can get air, they can go outside and play for the ones that can move around, and then the ones that can't. We can't just send them out and then they're breathing in nasty air, and then the possibility that the water can be contaminated. There's not enough funding to cover everybody. Then I know in a few weeks we could easily become Flint, Michigan if the water is contaminated. And I could have swore there's already a portion of Salisbury that has well water and they're living on Fruitland. We had years ago when I lived in Baltimore in Woodlawn County, our water was contaminated. The condo was nice and the rent was high, so we weren't able to pay for water gallon after gallon. After a few months, it got tiring. We ended up getting government funding until they could get it back. And that's not what we want to do now, because there's a whole slew of low-income families in that area, including my grandparents that live not even a mile and a half from Nella Mill Avenue, that are they're older. They don't need to be breathing in or dealing with contamination of water, because most likely they're not going to move because the house is owned. But there's a lot of homeowners in that area too that are not going to move if something like this happens. So who's going to come in pocket and pay for water and mask and everything until everything is cleared up? It's too close to the canal.
Hi, my name's Ernie Bond. I live out on Mount Herman Road here in Salisbury. I'll try to be brief. So The doctor from Somerset County mentioned some of the things that are happening there, how many industrial farms are there. One thing that I didn't hear mentioned is that Somerset County has twice as high a lung cancer rate as any other county in Maryland. On top of that, 4 of the 5 leaders in Maryland with cancer are here on the Lower Eastern Shore. There's direct correlation between where the CAFOs are and where these high concentrations of cancer are. There's also a direct correlation between asthma and other lung diseases and these CAFOs. The Center for Disease Control has said that anything within a 3-mile radius of one of these industrial farms is in the red zone. The Center for Disease Control, this is not an environmental organization. The Center for Disease Control also says when the wind is blowing, that radius goes out to 6 miles. That covers all of Salisbury. That covers West Salisbury Elementary, which is 1.5 miles from these 13 industrial chicken houses. That covers the Henry Parker Athletic Complex, which is about 1.5 miles from this industrial chicken complex. As somebody who hadn't thought much about cancer before 3 years ago, when I found out that I had cancer and had to go through radiation therapy, had to have organs cut out and all of that, I don't wish that on anybody. That is not a fun thing to go through. And the idea that kids are more susceptible to the things coming from these CAFOs than anybody else is because they breathe in more of that air that has these gases, these particulates and other things in it that can cause asthma, that can lead to lung cancer, that can lead to lung disease. I can't see any way we can allow something like this to be 1.5 miles from an elementary school. It just doesn't make sense to me. Politicians are elected to serve the citizenry. Politicians are elected to protect the citizenry. And when you find out that there are kids who are going to be exposed to this, and the principal and vice principal of West Salisbury didn't even know this was happening. They didn't know this existed. They are 1.5 miles away from this. The county, the city of Salisbury is about to build a new West Salisbury Elementary. They're about to put a bunch of money into creating a new school on that same location. A nice state-of-the-art school, which is 1.5 miles from millions of chickens and all of the pollutants that are coming from this CAFO. I just don't understand it. I don't see how anybody could allow that to happen. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Anyone else? Seeing none, now, is there anyone else that has any comments to make, not just in reference to the chicken house, but this is a public hearing as a whole? President Shawnee, I'm looking at you because you usually do have comments during the public hearing. Okay. All right, well then that does conclude our public hearing for tonight. I do appreciate everybody's comments. I appreciate everybody being so patient to sit here and listen for the whole evening, and the council will certainly take this into consideration when we convene. That being said, I'd like to entertain council comments.
Was that a public hearing or public comments?
That was a public hearing.
You said hearing, I got confused.
Oh, I'm sorry, public comments, sorry.
I forgot what I was going to say. I did jot down a couple notes.
You want us to go to the left, Larry?
You guys are well informed, and I appreciate everyone for coming out here. And I got 2 or 3 pages of notes, as I do every meeting. It's good to see that I believe everybody survived our blizzard winter storm last week. I'd like to thank everybody in the county that helped out, cleared the roads. They had the firefighters that were on duty, the police officers, and utility workers. We always forget about the utility workers, but thank you everybody that helped us out during that snowstorm. And I guess it was a blizzard too on Saturday. We had a lot of trees knocked down, power outages. So thank you everybody for showing up tonight.
Councilman Davis?
First of all, I'd like to thank for everyone for coming out tonight. As you're aware, I am the representative in District 1 to represent that. I do live right down the street. First of all, let me advise my farmer friends in the back, I'm not against farming. Zeke, I love you to death. But these CAFO farms, and I do believe that Charles, that if one is already existing, these regulations don't pertain to you. You can continue on with yours. They don't pertain to you. Yes.
the lady mentioned about they can operate these. CAFOs, prior to receiving permits, may not begin operation to receive unless receive written notice from MDE. They can do planning and construct the houses, but they can't put any birds in there till all the permits are provided by MDE. So they can't do anything. They can build it tomorrow, but they can't do anything till all the permits are provided. Last week I was in Annapolis, and I talked to one of the secretaries of Ag, and they are doing air quality testing. They're going to do that, and they're going to do water quality testing. And he said if this thing does go through, you're looking at 1 to 2 years down the road. This thing is not going to happen overnight. They got a lot of hurdles they got to go through, and there's a lot of regulations that they got to do. And I'm the representative from District 1. Cherie Sanford Hughes is our delegate. She's been working on it. She's been feeding me information. That's what I've been looking at, that she's getting from the department. There's a lot of things that is going on that is moving in favor of on this thing. So we are working behind the scenes to get things done. Even though you don't see me out, and I do come to some of the meetings, I'm not at all the meetings, but we are working behind the scenes to get some things done.
Thank you, Councilman Davis. Council comments? Any other council comments? Mr. Kilmer?
I just want to thank everybody for showing up tonight, expressing your concern. I know I've received emails and phone calls about this. We do understand your concern. I do think that there is some misinformation in the public. Reading in the paper how the chickens are going to be thrown out for the vultures to eat. I don't believe that that's the practice. The runoff is a real concern, and I do have full confidence in the state of Maryland to deal with the environmental aspects of this project. The state of Maryland does the environmental permits. There are strict controls over how chicken manure is handled. And, obviously, we have a challenge before us because, the big industry in Wycomico County is agriculture. And, with all due respect to one of the folks who spoke, it's not farmers market agriculture. I mean, the future of Wycomico County, if we're going to have agriculture, is going to be the operations like Zeke Collins has, and like the right farm. It's that type of situation. And if that goes away, then Wycomico County's economy is in very bad shape. So it's left to us behind here to find a way to have a balance that protects the public's health and protects zoning, to enact zoning laws that takes into account the neighbors and their concerns, but also keeps agriculture a viable industry in Wycomico County. And I appreciate the comments of Mr. Wright and the Farm Bureau and their willingness to work on regulations and find ways to make sure that these the new phase of poultry operations in Wycomico County do not have the impact on neighbors that I think a lot of you have very legitimate concerns about. So thank you for coming, and it's obvious that we have significant matters to consider. So.
Thank you, Councilman Kilmer. Yes, Ernie.
On a lighter note, while I was in Annapolis last week, the Board of Education made a pitch for the construction of West Salisbury. And after it was made, myself and Delegate Hughes met with Dr. Lever, and he advised us that the project is back on the front burner, and that if the board presents their paperwork by April 1st, he don't see why it shouldn't be approved.
Is that with the Lieutenant Governor? With Lieutenant Governor?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Councilman Davis. Any other council comments? There are presidential comments. I would just simply reiterate what has been said before. We do appreciate everybody being here tonight. The input is important to us, and we do listen to what you say. We do understand that we represent the public, and that is the individuals that are in this room tonight. There will be legislation that will come forward that will try to address these circumstances. That will come forward. I cannot speak for the entire council or the executive as to what that outcome might be, but it's my responsibility to get it on the table, and that will happen. The regulations that we have in place right now for Wycomico County are not sufficient. They're not sufficient for any industry or any community whatsoever, and we do recognize that. So keep in mind, and trust me when I say that the legislation will come to this table. We will review to see exactly what we feel the best options are, and we will try to do this as soon as possible. As Mark said, we have to consider that fine balance between the community, the individuals in the community, the neighborhoods, and also the industry itself, which does actually, it is a very strong industry in this community. It's a very viable industry in this community that helps us sustain our life in this community for many of us, our livelihood. But again, we'll bring it forward. You will see something very soon. And we do want to address this. So we are concerned about it as much as each and every one of you are. So that being said, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn so that we can go into open work session followed by a closed work session. Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much. We'll take a 5-minute recess. Open some windows.
And I remember when you were a child, I was just 30 years old. I remember when you were